Yo! Okay, what's going on, everybody? It is I. Yeah, buddy. We're gonna get the show started in just a second here. Just getting some last moment preparation. What do we got? Digital Generation over in the YouTube from 40s here. Zigzag, Cindy, Caretaker Dan, Carman's over on the Rumble. Kate's Landry Royale on the YouTube. Okay, what's up? There's some names I haven't seen before. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Not to make that statement about anybody in particular, but here we are. It's Canary Clubhouse. We're going to get the show started in just a moment. We're giving people a couple of seconds, getting the text message out there. The text message should have arrived. If you did not get a text message from me, you know what to do. It's easy peasy. Just text the word Canary to 877-740-3226, just like this on the screen. Canary to 877-740-3226. Yeah, get on the list. I'm trying out this new thing. You guys don't care. It doesn't matter. So there you go. Yeah. If you text that, I will text you before every show, just so you know we're going live. And you can text us back. A popular fun thing to do is to text us prayer requests, because while I don't always go down the list of texts that come in, whenever I see a prayer request come into the text message, I want to make sure to the best of my ability, I can get it out there. So, all right. Well, let's do it again. Remember, everybody, this is a call-in show. You're here in the pre-show, okay? We're going to start the real show in a moment. But this is a call-in show. Y'all have the opportunity, or perhaps even the responsibility, to call in, say hi, and just hang out. You know, like I always say, don't feel pressure to have some sort of, amazing insight or some stumpable question or something like that. I think I'll talk more about it on the show, but just to say it out loud, you guys are here early, you get to hear it. I mean, it's been really encouraging to see the various callers. While we get a wide range of callers, very happy about the variety. There are callers who make a habit of calling in, and I think it's interesting, similar to how when in the early days of the art, now nobody does art really. I mean, we have some real bangers come in from very special artists, but you think 2021, 2022, if you were around, there was 30 pieces of art would come in, and then of course AI arrived and just ruined it for everybody. It's not fun for everybody anymore. Similar to and what we got to see with the producers who regularly created art and sent it in the show is we could just watch live how they got better and better and better at their art, because they're consistently doing it for the show. Dame Allie, great example, legendary example. And it's kind of fun with the callers. People call in every week, every other week, once a month, something like that. And you can tell we can all empathize with being a little nervous, or maybe not being used to hearing your own voice, or being live, or whatever. But it's been cool to see repeat callers come in and just have a dearth of experience now speaking live or having a conversation when other people are listening. It's cool to hear. So anyways, that's encouragement for you to call into the show, say hi, whatever's going on. If you look down in the description of the show, wherever you are, look in the description, you'll see call in link, and you should be able to click on that link, or if whatever app you're on doesn't allow you to click on it, just copy it, paste it into a browser. It'll ask you a couple questions, and you'll be put into the back room, and you hang out here. And when it's time to bring you up on stage, I'll click a button and we'll have a chat. So there you go. That's how you do it. I would recommend people get in earlier. If you feel like you want to do it, you should call in earlier. Fun part is when you're in the back room, You can watch the show, listen to the show as usual. You're not going to miss the show, and it's by calling in. All right, let's get the show started. We got all sorts of stuff to talk about. Not a whole lot of plans, but you know how it is. I'm going to put this piece of art up like this, cardboard canary. I'm going to play a jingle, and then the show officially starts. So here we go. Hold on to your butts.
Called it. We got a caller. We got a caller on the line here.
What's going on, everybody? It is I, your best buddy Basil, and you are listening to Canary Cry Clubhouse, an opportunity for all of us to take a deep breath, to peel our eyeballs away from the screens. Well, we're still looking at screens, but away from the nonsense, the propaganda, the emotional triggering, the mind control, and the hyper reality being crafted around us at all times. It's interesting because in our studies here, whether it's sort of media studies or news analysis, we're really trying to understand not just what's being presented to us, but how it's being presented to us and why it's being presented to us that way. In the famous words, the medium is the message, right? Doesn't matter. I mean, the message is one thing, but the way in which it's delivered is a whole other thing. And it's a really effective way to communicate. Communicate's not even the right word for it. That's a kind word for it. Propagandize is one way to put it. But also, we've spoken previously about the concept of hyperreality, which is the idea that, those in control of presenting reality to us on a regular basis have an incentive and are rewarded for, let's say, fudging the numbers a little bit. When presenting reality, the incentive is not necessarily to give a clear, accurate picture of reality. There's all sorts of reasons to zhuzh it up a little bit, And it's funny because in this process of, learning about the history of news or communication or propaganda or media in general, the most classic examples, the examples that are the most helpful in sort of learning how to identify these things, is propaganda during wartime. And it's interesting because, of course, we can all go back to Edward Bernays, the invention of propaganda, World War I, the Freudian DNA line, of course, inventing advertising, but not inventing advertising for corporations. Remember, much like almost all technology, and I don't mean just like gadgets or weapons or computers, but technology as in systems, technology as in languages, technology as in strategies to achieve some sort of thing. All these sorts of things that you can patent. They always start out in the government, and they always start out for war, right? So like the great examples are like various radio technologies or television or cell phones or whatever. These little constituent technologies, they're always created by the government. They always have them about 20, 30 years before us. And once the government squeezed everything they can out of it, eventually it makes it to the commercial market. But that's exactly where propaganda and advertising is just the commercial version of propaganda. We've gone over Edward Bernays, who is the nephew of Sigmund Freud, who took his uncle's psychological knowledge and theories, and the whole twisted nonsense with Freud in the first place, which strangely connects with even modern phenomenons like the Epstein files, but that's for another podcast. He took these strategies and took it to the government and worked for the government in World War I and wrote the book Propaganda. And you read Propaganda, and it's really funny because, people will sort of separate propaganda and advertising, or propaganda and marketing, as if one is like particularly sinister, propaganda, scary government stuff. But advertising, that's just what happens in between, commercial breaks of your favorite television show. But, as far as the actual history is concerned, advertising, marketing is just another name for what Edward Bernays invented for the government. He called it propaganda at the time. And, it was sort of intellectually descendant of Sigmund Freud, some of the earliest, most kind of twisted theories about how human beings create the world around them. But thankfully, people have figured out over the last century or so that people really don't want to, they prefer to have reality created for them. They prefer to have reality sort of dictated to them. It's more comfortable to have someone in authority tell you what reality is, and then you can just work with that, right? And I say it's more comfortable, and I don't mean it in such a way that like all of us here who are have woken up to the madness and have woken up to the propaganda and who've woken up, I mean, if you're really honest, in their darkest of moments, someone who is the veil has dropped from their eyes and they see everything around them for what it really is. At their darkest moments, most skeptical, awake, people will tell you, sometimes I just wish I could go back to before. I just wish I could go back where I didn't really pay attention and I just kind of agreed with everybody else and I fit in and life was easier and I didn't cringe at everything my family members say and I didn't get into arguments about what the president or the news said or whatever. So you get it. There is a comfort that you lose when you start waking up to what's going on around us. And I tell my story about my buddy who I've known forever since I was like 4 years old. And we were best buddies for a long time, kept in contact, still talk to him to these days, to this day. And it was only like a year or two ago, kind of during the COVID stuff, where everybody else started waking up, right? We had this mass moment where it only took a couple years and more people than ever were realizing something is up with the way the world is being presented to us. And so naturally, he's kind of in that group. And he's talking to me. He's kind of hinting, right? He doesn't really want to like commit to, whatever weird COVID story he doesn't believe or something. And I can kind of sense it. I go, oh my gosh, okay, all right. He's kind of, because I never really forced anything on him, but he knows who he's dealing with. I go, oh my goodness. Okay, is this the moment? Is he gonna wake? Is he gonna wake up? Is he gonna see that everything is fake? And before the conversation could get real explicit about that, he just says, I just kind of want to believe what everybody else believes. It's just easier that way. I kind of just, I don't know. I just don't want to deal with it. And he said it very earnestly. I mean, this is something that somebody would say that would normally open up a couple hour long conversation with me trying to discover and maybe change his mind that he shouldn't just for the sake of comfort and safety choose to believe everything the authorities tell him. But there's something in the way that he said it and the way that he was looking at me that told me, okay, he really does know. Like he does see it. He just really doesn't want it. He doesn't want to wake up. He doesn't want to get into it. He doesn't want it to change the way he lives his life. He's got all sorts of things to worry about. Adding this extra layer just seemed like it was too much. He was earnestly telling me, like, please, it's too much for me. And I think it is I think to me, it was maybe, I hope so. I hope I'm not, don't pay for this later, or maybe I'll have to answer to God someday for it. But the way that he said it to me so frankly, and the way that he looked at me when he said it, I just came to the conclusion that the best way to love my friend right now is to just let him make that choice for himself, right? And it's not because he didn't know. Like, that was the thing. He was telling me that he knew, but he was telling me that he was making the choice, that it was just too much for him to deal with right now. And it's an interesting part of being a person. It's an interesting part, I think, especially of being a Christian. Because in my many, many years of being a Christian, of course, growing up in the church, going to Sunday school, doing the whole thing, being an American evangelical Protestant, there's a lot of pressure to make sure that you are evangelizing and that you are, trying to get your friends saved, or you're trying to get wherever you go, that's the missionary field. And it took me a long time in my walk with Christ to, yes, be ready to, of course, proclaim the truth at any moment, but also to have a faith that if that moment isn't right, I don't need to push it. God's doing a whole thing, right? He's orchestrating an entire life for this person that includes revealing himself to the person. And there are moments when God is going to use me, and there's moments where God isn't going to use me, where he doesn't need me to force a conversation or whatever. Because a lot of times, and anybody who has tried to evangelize really in any capacity knows that sometimes, we kind of force it a little bit. And it usually doesn't turn out very good. And that doesn't mean that if there's some conflict in sharing the gospel, that is the wrong time. That's not what I'm saying. There's often some pushback, some friction when sharing the gospel of Jesus, right? But that's not what I'm talking about. There's a sense where if we're very quiet, we're very still, and we listen to the Holy Spirit in any moment, there are times when we know it's time to share, and we know that there are times when leaving it to God in that moment is the right thing to do. So I go back to my buddy, the story with my buddy, and that's kind of what it was. I felt very strongly that the right thing to do, to love my friend, I can see that he knows that he is consciously making a choice to live in the hyper reality that has been created through mass media and mind control and social engineering and the whole thing. And I just dropped it. Because I know through my own experience and the experiences that I hear from others that it's never, first of all, actually waking up is a choice. You got to make the choice, okay? Doesn't really happen accidentally. When you're on the train to seeing the illusion that is the reality that we live in, when you're on that train and things kind of stop making sense, and this is often a process that takes a couple of years, and it's a couple of years of looking into this thing, going down this rabbit hole, seeing how it connects to this part of life or this part of the establishment, or whatever. And you're kind of, you feel compelled, I think that's the Holy Spirit, gives us that unction to continue to search down these rabbit holes. But it's a series of choices, right? You are having to make the choice to continue to do that. And at any point, you have the option to stop and turn around and go back to how things were. Now, we all know there is a threshold. There is a line, an invisible line. You can't see it coming. You look back and you're not sure when you passed it, but there is an invisible line where there's no turning back. But at that point, I mean, what are you going to do? You're already out. And so I say this to say, to create a foundation, I guess, to communicate some ideas today, that I was quite disturbed by the cardboard ayatollah phenomenon. And for those of you who caught the CCNT yesterday, I told the story about the cardboard ayatollah phenomenon, where it started out with an image coming from Iran, when Iran had a big ceremony to sign in their new leader, supreme leader. And during this ceremony, on the video, they bring out a framed picture of the guy, and they set it on the stage, and they go, here he is. This is our new guy. They didn't bring him out in person, which is understandable. I mean, immediately you go like, okay, yeah, of course they're not going to bring him out in person because he's going to blow up, anytime anybody knows where he is. And so it makes total sense. They would just bring out a picture of him and say, hey, here's the guy. This is what he looks like. We promise he's real, and we promise he's alive. Whether or not that is true, we're getting different reports about whether the man is even alive or not. But that's part of it. That's part of the hyperrealities, the confusion. It's part of the usefulness. And we're in a moment, you could argue, of course, that, well, I mentioned before that propaganda, media studies, hyperreality, all these sorts of things are most relevant and most apparent during times of war. And I named a couple of those, of course, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, et cetera, where even the industry of crafting the illusion finds new effective ways and new narratives, new storylines, new ways to control the perception of reality for masses of people. And yeah, we did have the war on terror the past 20 years. And I would say the early parts of the war on terror was where we had the biggest change, because that is when suddenly everybody was on the internet. But then that lasted 20 years. And we kind of they make some pretty impressive developments on how to propagandize and how to control the narrative with the internet and now cell phones and stuff. But it's actually been a while for this generation. I mean, it's 2026. After 2020, each year felt like 100 years, COVID was another one of these examples where we really saw the technology, the techniques of creating fake reality for everybody take a whole nother step. But then we kind of got used to it, and people woke up, it was a little too blatant. But now we're just like 10 days into this new era. And the difference is, in 2020, social media maybe had hit its peak, its peak saturation, its peak participation. People had started, using social media, trusting social media more than legacy media. It was really when legacy media began its real descent, 2020. But here we are now in this new situation where the creators of hyperreality, the narrative magicians, are now armed with artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence that is sufficient. And I say this is my personal, so therefore it will go down in history as effectively true. It'll be, there will be statues and monuments celebrating the moment that I, Basil, discovered the moment when history shifted from one epoch to another. And that was when AI became, AI had it took the shape. AI finally took the shape that fit into the hole in the wall to finally seal off the great wall of propaganda. And that was the cardboard ayatollah. And many of you have probably already seen the cardboard ayatollah, but let me see if I can just get it up here on screen for us here. The problem is now that it has, in about 24 hours, it is become, everybody caught up with what I was presenting yesterday. Let me see if I can get this on the screen. 1 second. Get on the screen. Here we go. Here we go. Let me put it. Sorry, everybody. There it is. All right. So this is the cardboard ayatollah. This is not the original one, but this is the one that had everybody pumped. I muted it, although I will unmute it for a moment so you can hear the music behind it. This is the music that appeared behind every 11-second video that ever existed. The only evidence of the cardboard ayatollah's existence. Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. I believe that's what that's called. I believe that's called Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. I could be wrong, but from my meager understanding of ballet and the Nutcracker, I believe that song is the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. Now, why does the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, why was that the chosen soundtrack to this epoch-shifting moment? I don't know. I pray the Holy Spirit leads me and guides me to understand there has to be some sort of importance to that. I don't know what it is, but here you go. And you have an extremely convincing video of a Iranian man setting up this cardboard cutout of the Ayatollah. It is strange that they printed out his face, put his face on the cardboard cutout, and left the rest of the cutout of his body bare cardboard. And when I first saw this, I go, that is interesting. But I mean, it's Iran, and they're getting bombed, and they're in a state of emergency. I think maybe I'll cut them some slack on not expending the resources to print out, a 6-foot paper robe for this cardboard cutout. Point being, in all honesty, I mean, you look at the way the light changes on the cutout as he sets it down, as it wobbles back and forth, completely convincing. See, it's bright, then it tips forward, and it's dark like this. Anywho, completely convincing. But to the discerning individual, to the ones really skeptical, naturally skeptical, by default skeptical of and this is what I've been saying, you have to be 100% default skeptical of every relevant video of everything, especially during wartime. Every missile video, every explosion video, every lights in the sky video, everything, 100% skeptical. And from that default skepticism, I go, why is there only one clip? And it's 11 seconds, and it's reposted 1,000 times, and it has the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy in the background. Not a single person clipped a different version of this from the ceremony, and it was just weird. Long story short, Gonz and I go through a full hour, two-man research for a full hour. That's 2 human work hours to try to find literally any evidence that this is true, except for the fact that the video is present. We're comparing it to other clips of the ceremony. See how complex the background is with all this curly cues, very Middle Eastern background, flowers and swoops, and you've got some like crazy, Iranian writing in here, and it's very complex. The type of things that AI would mess up, even if it was just like one of these tiny little lines was missing or was bent a certain way. Incredibly detailed, and it perfectly matches the real footage from the thing. But why the sugar plum fairy? But why? And of course, it took about 48 hours. This was, everywhere. Of course, it was very funny. And a second video popped up, which was this one, where Trump is showing Laura Ingraham where he had framed a version of the cardboard Ayatollah in the White House. Now, this was easily debunkable in some brief research, because this whole clip is actually taken and modified from when Trump was showing Laura Ingraham the Declaration of Independence that he had hung up in the White House. So that's an easy peasy one. Okay, but I'll say, when I saw this, there was no reason for me to disbelieve it, because this is the meme presidency. They have embraced the hyper reality creation more than maybe any other administration in the history of the US. And when I say embraced, I mean they are blatant about it. They are open about it. I mean, the videos that the White House is posting, the like anime hype edits, the the meme videos. I think that's one thing that is, whether it is good or bad in sort of like a final sense, in the same way that Marina Abramovich said Trump, whether he knows it or not, is the grand chaos magician, because what he does is snapping people out of it, waking people up, snapping people out of the haze of the illusion, right? That was Marina Abramovich's analysis of Donald Trump, which, coming from, the top ranking, at least publicly known witch in the world, that's a pretty big, that carries some weight. But now the entire administration is that. And they embrace the madness, the hyper reality. And the hyper reality being taking as real, or perceiving as real, the heightened fictional, symbolic representation of reality. That's what these edits are. That's what this is. And long story short, I will say, for Canary Cry, we did, as far as I can tell, we were the first to debunk the cardboard Ayatollah. Even on the mainstream, I'm looking for the earliest debunkings of the cardboard Ayatollah, and I'll share some with you right here. Not to brag, but just so you see. Yahoo News, here's a fact check fake video of Trump unveiling a cardboard Ayatollah. They're debunking the Trump version, the easily debunked one, the obviously fake one, 20 hours ago. Okay. That was after our show. Here's Snopes doing the same thing, debunking the Trump video of the fake Ayatollah, cardboard Ayatollah. And the earliest debunking of the actual Ayatollah was 9 hours ago while we were sleeping. So congratulations, Canarians. We've got an eye for the hyperreal. But this really says something to me. And apologies if this is like, I don't know, a little more ambiguous or like a little theoretical or whatever. We've talked about hyperreality before, and you know how we are about repeating ourselves around here, but I think it's important because I even kind of forgot. Believe it or not, I don't wake up every morning and remember to say to myself, remember to frame everything you see happen today in the fact that we are living in a hyperreality created by illusory magicians who control the narrative, and everything in our world is fake. I believe it or not, I don't actually remind myself of that every morning. But the cardboard ayatollah, oopsies, is a really incredible sorry, this video keeps playing Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies. I wonder what okay, don't get off topic, Basil. Don't get off topic. But I do wonder if Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy is royalty free. Can we co-opt Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy? Is that copywritten? I don't know. We'll find out. But here's what I love about it. And I think the whole world believed this for a couple of reasons. Number one, AI has reached a sufficient quality that this is unidentifiable, I guess, as AI, down to basically the perfect details. But there's a part of us that wanted to believe this, and there's a part of us that expected to believe this. And there's a part of us that had no reason to even question whether or not this was real. Like I said, at least to go through my thought process. Oh, very silly. They set up a cardboard cutout. Yeah, they're getting bombed 1,000 times a day, right? If they had to get a printer out of a bunker, out of the rubble where a Tomahawk missile, like, I get it. Okay, you only have enough resources to print out one part of them, but even the fact that he's super tall, right? People are saying, of course it's fake. It's like 8 feet tall. No, of course it's 8 feet tall. Human beings, for thousands of years, when they are representing a leader or representing, a god, if they're representing a figure who is supposed to be very important, they have always, always, always made them huge. And now I don't know if, whoever prompted the AI to create this included make it 8 feet tall. However, it shows something very interesting about the AI that maybe it was told, but if it wasn't told, it knew that when creating an image, not just an image like a picture, but like an image like a statue, like an image like a cardboard cutout, that of a venerable figure, it needed to be really tall. So totally believable. This is the fact it's 8 feet tall, completely in line with what you would expect it to be. Same with the cardboard bit. Was it a little weird that, the cardboard isn't covered and it's plainly cardboard, but they went through the trouble of actually cutting it into the shape of his body? Yes, but also they're being bombed and they're back to the Stone Age. And the fact that the cardboard has the creases, you wouldn't even think about it until you have to think about it. But the fact that the cardboard is not one big flat piece of cardboard, but it has the creases in the cardboard from where it would have been a box, because they're getting bombed and they have to find a way to present their new leader without actually bringing the guy. the creases in the box. Utterly natural to the eye and to the mind. Even the fact that there is a sprig, some weird sprig of flowers, taped to the head of the ayatollah. I don't know what that is. I don't know why that would be. But it's Iran, and their culture is such that putting flowers on the head of the fake ayatollah makes total sense. There's flowers in the background. They got flowers. Probably has some symbolic meaning, especially if you have sort of a biblically minded understanding of the world. You could see how perhaps in the Quran it says, anoint your supreme leader with this special flower. Kind of like the fig leaves in the Old Testament and the, crown of thorns, whatever. You could totally see that being a thing. I don't know what it is. So whether or not any of those details are true, they are presented in a way that there's no questions that are not answered by, oh, it's Iran. Oh, it's a different culture. Some people were pointing out that like the guy setting it up kind of kisses the shoulder and saying, oh, it's so fake. Nobody would ever kiss it. Bro, the Middle East, they are kissing each other all the time. They're kissing stuff. They're kissing walls. They're kissing black cubes. They're kissing each other. Like a kiss in the Middle East is a totally different thing than what it is in the West. So the fact he kisses the shoulder of the cardboard cutout, anybody who's saying that that's like obviously fake is not sort of paying attention to the culture of the Middle East. And so even the AI knew, to the extent it could add details, like the guy setting it up, gently kissing the shoulder of the supreme leader, was just below the unbelievable mark, right? It doesn't make it unbelievable. It's just below the, oh, well, it's a different culture. So we have this cross-cultural AI facilitating this cross-cultural hyper reality, where not only do we believe this when we see it, we actually want to believe it when we see it. Because from a Western perspective, that's very silly. And it's indicative that they are afraid. And it's indicative that the war is punishing them more than it's punishing us. And it's indicative of, their crazy culture that brings out a cardboard cutout. In the situation we're in, we want this to be true. So much so that it's immediately believable, because the reality was that they brought out a picture, a printed square picture of him covered in flowers. And that already is weird enough. To make the leap from the printed picture to the cardboard cutout seems like a big leap. But I think for us, it was such a short leap that it was really easy to accept as true. Now, the other question is, why? Why? What is the message of the cardboard cutout? What does that tell us that we don't already know about Iran, its culture? Like I said, they already brought out the picture. It's a small jump to a cardboard cutout. I cannot think of any significant subliminal message of the cardboard cutout that isn't already achieved with the real story, which was they brought out just a picture. But what it did, I think, was prove that we have crossed some sort of threshold. And we are, whether we are aware of it, whether we are aware of it or not, much like my buddy from childhood, who very earnestly made the choice to stay in the matrix, at least for a little bit longer. I think at least those who are online, maybe subconsciously, maybe it wasn't a choice, I don't know, subconsciously made the choice to not question the cardboard ayatollah. And one thing the cardboard ayatollah, if we're looking for any lasting or effective import, is that it quickly became the most memed thing to ever exist. Suddenly, everybody was getting AI, putting the cardboard ayatollah in a disco, putting him in a cardboard tank, putting him on the cover of Time magazine, putting him, you just scroll and it's just endless. Oh gosh, and there's music behind all of them. Here's cardboard ayatollah dancing with Trump and Jake Paul, Ron Paul, Logan Paul, I don't know, one of the Paul guys. It goes on and on and on. So if this one is what's this fella's name? Marco Rubio, sitting on the couch in cardboard because now he has to be the Ayatollah of Iran. You see it. It goes on and on and on, repeating only once or twice each one. And it has created a reality of its own. And it took the mainstream a good 20 hours after we had a crisis about this on the show yesterday. But this should serve as an example of what's going on all the time, and not just in politics, not just online, not just any of these things. But as believers, as Christians, we should be aware of this hyperreality concept from the very beginning of our faith, because at the very foundational levels of finding Christ, giving our life over to Christ, there is an inherent admission that this world that we perceive around us is not ultimate reality. And depending on what kind of person you are, not only is this reality not ultimate reality, but sometimes we start to suspect that it is so far from reality that the word reality shouldn't even be used to describe what we see around us, what we experience around us. And there's a beautiful thing about how God, through Jesus, has reoriented man's ability to relate to God through Christ and therefore ultimate reality, that we can understand that we are simultaneously our vision in front of us. We can understand that we are simultaneously, while experiencing this hyperreality from start to finish, that we are also living in whatever fundamental reality is. We are in the kingdom of God. We are citizens of heaven. We are sitting at the right hand of the Father. And while it can be very difficult to experience that, and some people do experience it. Some people experience it in very real ways all the time. But it's so far, outside the training of our perception that we can find ourselves looking at the cardboard supreme leader, whoever that cardboard supreme leader is, right? Look, the cardboard ayatollah is really not so different from the mainstream depiction of Trump or anybody. It's really funny too, just real quick on a side note, as Americans, I think there's something interesting that when we saw the cardboard ayatollah, we had no problem whatsoever believing that it was real. And I think part of that is because we've become so accustomed to cardboard Trumps. It's chili cook-offs, political rallies, state fairs, whatever. When you see a cardboard cutout of Trump, you almost go, yeah, cardboard cutout of Trump. Even if you don't like Trump, right? Even if you're not whatever, the presence of a cardboard Trump. I mean, we never had this with like Bush. Nobody would ever get stoked about a cardboard Bush. I don't ever remember recalling a cardboard Obama existing in ever. But the concept of a cardboard Trump kind of is a part of the brand. Like, it's part of the Trump brand. And I think part of that is related to another part of the Trump brand, which is fully embracing the reality of hyper reality blatantly, not even really trying to hide it. And I think that's part of sort of the Trump spell, that whether you like his policies, whether or not you like him as a person, whatever, this embracing of the ridiculous, of the absurd, the sort of revelation that like, oh, the White House X account is posting silly videos. Well, why is that any worse than the Obama White House account posting really serious videos? Previous White House accounts, the Biden, I totally forgot about Biden. The Biden White House account, posting very serious, earnest, heartfelt messages from the mumbling president. That's like it's insulting almost that they would implore us to take the messaging from the government so seriously. And what I think is effective, but also sort of enlightening to remember, is the fact that the Trump White House X account requires us to take almost nothing seriously. They're not asking us to get somber and serious about something Trump has to say. And Trump himself, a TV show star, a character. He's been playing a character his entire life. And this is quite obvious and apparent in so much of even pro-Trump writings are about. It's this character that people like so much, and he knows it. He even writes about that in his own book. You read Art of the Deal. 80% of Art of the Deal is mostly about personal branding. And so, when we see the cardboard ayatollah, I think something awake and very deep inside of us is willing to not question it, because in one way or another, our cardboard ayatollah, the character of Trump, whether it's the one being presented on CNN, whether it's the one being presented on Fox, whether it's the one being presented online, they're not so different. And realizing this is sort of a doorway back to the understanding that through Christ, we don't have to be a citizen of the hyper reality anymore. We can recognize it for what it is. And sometimes we forget this. I've been complaining a little bit here and there, just making comments, just cute little comments over the past few days about what seems to be the case, that people who have been listeners of the show Canarians for a very long time, something sort of a switch flipped after the Iranian war started. And it might be in conjunction with the Epstein file thing, and it might be a lot of things sort of building up together. We saw this when the Ukraine war started. Suddenly, there was a population of listeners who weren't hearing from me what they wanted to hear. And I'll tell you, for somebody on this side, there's no one as, let's say, cranky. There's no one as cranky as someone who suddenly isn't hearing what they want to hear from you. And it happened with COVID, and it happened with Ukraine, and it happened with Iran. And it's an opportunity. Every time we move into these little epochs, it's an opportunity to take a second, realize we have thoughts and determinations on what's going on in the world immediately, right? The Iran war starts, boom, we immediately have thoughts about it. We immediately have opinions. We immediately, suddenly, everybody's an expert on Middle East relations. Suddenly, everybody's an expert on drone warfare. Suddenly, everybody's an expert on virology. Suddenly, everybody's an expert. Overnight. And when we can't catch ourselves for a moment, or we don't build in to our own sort of response, when something like this happens, if we don't build in a period of time where we go, okay, let me think and listen and learn and watch for a week, maybe 2 weeks. Let me take in more information. Let me hear information from all the sides. Let me read as many different outlets as I can. I say it all the time, but that's part of what I feel responsible to do. Listening to podcasts from every single side of the spectrum, all the way from like socialists to, the quote unquote far right, from CNN to Fox, blah, 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 blah. Take it in from all over the place. And it sort of starts to reveal itself. But you can only do that if you give yourself time. And then my hope is for me to distill all that, present all of that to you guys, and then we can walk around and figure it out together is the hope. But we have to give ourselves a couple of weeks. Because that immediate reaction, that's us forgetting that the world we live in and everything we know about it has been manufactured for us. And it's been manufactured on purpose. And usually our immediate reaction to anything is because that trigger has been installed in us. They've been programming us from the very beginning, from our birth, from Saturday morning cartoons, from the back of a cereal box, for many, many years. And you gotta remember that almost always, your immediate thoughts about something are not your own thoughts. That's what happens when you've been living in an illusory hyper reality with trillions of dollars and gazillions of man hours and the smartest people with the least ethics and morals, with the highest incentive to program you like you are a robot. Now, it's difficult. I get it. And I'm not the best. One way that I'm actually get in trouble a lot of times is when I'm speaking and thinking live to thousands of people, I'm often having moments where I will have my first thoughts about something. And many of those times, those are just the programmed reactions. And then I have to work through it myself, much like what we're doing here together. I have to work through it myself, and it's embarrassing to do it in public because often we find out that our first thoughts were not our own thoughts. Best case scenario, Lord help me one day, someday, I hope to get to the point where my first thoughts about something are God's thoughts, are Christ's thoughts. That's it. That's what we want. That's what we yearn for. That's what we pray for. That's what we devote ourselves to God for. That's what we spend decades and decades of faith and failing and faith and failing. The best case scenario is that before we join Christ in heaven, our first thought about something can be from him and not from the narrative magicians of this world. But it's very hard to do, and it doesn't always happen. So those are my opening thoughts for today. You know, it's interesting, just real quick, we're going to take some callers here in just a moment. Trying to sort of map out the cardboard ayatollah thing and really how ridiculous it is. And, you know, hyperreality is like a pretty high level, like philosophical concept, Baudrillard, French philosopher, you know, yada, yada, yada. You can spend a lot of time going through the concept of hyperreality. But what I thought was so perfect about the cardboard ayatollah was that now we know that it is a fake image, an AI image of a fake image, a cardboard cutout of a possibly fake person. Part of the, or not fake person, but like we don't actually know if this guy is alive. We don't know if it's just propaganda. You know, they're a country in war that needs a supreme leader, and as we have seen in movies from the beginning of time, you know, sometimes the quote unquote supreme leader doesn't even exist anymore. Sometimes it's just an image to focus citizens' attention and to make them think that this guy exists when really it's just whatever, a bunch of shadowy Muslim clerics or something ruling the world or whatever, or bankers ruling the world, or, you know, like Trump being quote unquote the leader of the free world, when in all reality, it's probably, you know, whatever, the Illuminati or the name the group, whatever. So it's a fake image of a fake image of a fake image that was completely convincing, and not even completely convincing, there wasn't even a question in our mind whether this image was real. And that's life. That's our whole world. Okay. That's everything. It is a fake image of a fake image of a fake image. Actually, now that I think about it, that might be like the number one example of hyper. I think Baudrillard himself would be impressed with this moment of hyperreality. So there you go. There's some of my thoughts for today. I'm sure you guys have thoughts. I'm sure we have many other important things to talk about because we got some people who are hanging out in the waiting room. I see, apologies, I went so long that some people had to leave the waiting room. up, and I've popping. Oh, nuts. Oh, I'm back here in the private chat. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the private chat. Yeah, shoot. Sorry about that, Dame Sarah. Yeah, Dame Sarah, if you have a chance, if you'd like, whenever you call in for the rest of the show, I'd love to bump you to the front of the line, Dame Sarah. Sorry about that. I see that. Okay, here we go. We're going to take some callers. You should call in. You'll see, look down in the description of this video. You'll see a call-in link. Click on that call-in link or copy and paste it into a browser. Answer a couple questions. It'll put you into the background. The back room. You can watch the show, listen to the show there. And when it's time, I'll bring you up on stage. But we got a caller, very patiently waiting, hanging out here with us. It's Sir Darren, Night of the Hungry Panda. Let's see what he's got going on. Sir Darren, how are you, buddy?
Yo, Basil.
What's up?
Oh, man, it sounds like it's popping off, doesn't it?
Sounds like it's popping off, buddy. It's popping off, man.
Oh, man, I went down the Ayatollah cardboard cutout, and now that's my entire timeline. I need to... I've noticed with, like, X, if you search out a subject for just a little while, it basically says, oh, that's what you're interested in? Okay. You know.
Dude, totally. I mean, I think even more than that, I think they are just really slamming this thing home. This is just some sort of, I think it has something, I don't know why, I'm still confused. I think it has something with the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies. There is some, MK Ultra sleeper cell activation code in Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. I think it's really about that. I think the cardboard Ayatollah is just a delivery mechanism for the secret hidden message in Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy.
Yeah. There's oh man, there's something weird. You know what instantly sort of popped in my brain though was in World War I, they originally trained soldiers to fire at targets that were like big bullseye targets.
Yeah.
And they noticed that during the war, they had a really hard time, actually shooting at each other. A lot of soldiers actually shot past each other and things because they were kind of like they weren't really used to like shooting at people. And so for World War II, they actually started using silhouettes to shoot at because they noticed that it desensitized the soldiers to fire at the people easier.
Yeah,
and so in some ways this cardboard cutout, it's like it kind of is maybe a desensitization of, look, these are not people, they're just cardboard, like we all can go and blow up cardboard all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Oh my gosh, this cat is causing trouble. It's interesting too, because like video games are kind of the next version of that, for whatever next round of super soldiers or whatever, or maybe it's like training the AI or something. But yeah, shooting a silhouette, cardboard silhouette. Interesting about the Ayatollah. It's funny that way, and it makes on the level of the World War I soldiers, where they had never shot at the shape of a human before, and it kind of went against their natural instincts to harm other people. They had to find a way to train them to shoot at human figures. I mean, that is another interesting aspect of the cardboard Ayatollah. Remember, I don't know if you remember, but I'm sure the concept is familiar to people. After 9/11 in the early 2000s, it became really, really popular when you went to gun ranges. Suddenly you could buy an Osama bin Laden target, right?
Yeah.
Which was kind of interesting, kind of weird, but it's kind of that same thing, the targets that you train with, or maybe not even train, play with. The targets that you play with is like part of this, I don't know, part of this programming And yeah, now that you mentioned that, I look at this cardboard ayatollah. And it's like, oh yeah, that just looks like you set up a little ayatollah target at the gun range.
Well, and I know too that another connection people were instantly sort of comparing this to. They said, "Is this South Park?" Kind
Yeah.
of the whole South Park spoof. Whenever they do like the political figures, they kind of make them just like the cardboard cutout version
Yeah,
of their picture, and they. So it really, again, it sort of desensitizes you to seeing them as people, and more of just these iconography of whoever they are.
totally.
Idea.
It's
Yeah,
very effective.
because again,
Very
you know,
effective.
I remember it's so bizarre. I literally talked to someone a week before the whole Iran thing happened, and they were like, "Oh, well, we need to bomb Iran," was what they were saying. I'm like, really? Like you went, because I can't remember how it's, I basically said something about, I wish Trump just didn't do everything that Israel asked them to do. And they immediately jumped into, well, we have to bless Israel and we should bomb Iran.
Right.
I was like, what kind of leap was that? Like, it made me think that, people have already been very primed and conditioned for this already. And I think that's why, like, you were talking to your friend about what they do or don't want to believe. And it is kind of like, they almost don't want to go any further, down the rabbit hole, because it's like, then it's just too much to think about for some folks, I guess.
Yeah. That's the thing. I really honored that decision that he made, because it was clear that like he kind of knew what was at stake, and it wasn't like he wasn't exasperated. It wasn't, a response. It wasn't an emotional response. I could tell he had really thought about it and just made the choice, and whatever.
The other thing that I was wanting to talk about, but it didn't really get much traction, and I was a little bummed, was the Greta Thunberg Secret Service agent. Did you see that?
I saw that. I saw one post about it. Is the really young Secret Service agent?
Yeah.
Where was this?
Well, and everybody was like immediately comparing it to Greta Thunberg. It's like, hey, is Greta Thunberg like now working for the Secret Service?
She kind of had that look, that kind of Swedish, young Swedish lass look. Here we go. I'll pull it up here. So
and then I remember I commented, I said, perhaps it was just, Kaya Trump LARPing as a Secret Service agent, because she's
funny.
trying to do all that now.
This girl has to be, what, 25 at the oldest? I mean, you could even 22, 23. It's pretty funny. I don't
well, and what's interesting was I was sort of comparing it to, like, there was something interesting. Again, I just kind of noticed things, and like, it's almost like you have to wait a few weeks before anything really formulates. But a lot of the gas signs that were going around on my timeline, at least, they were showing like the Chevron prices for California, and it was like, oh, it's like $8 a gallon now. And so I thought it was interesting that Trump showed up at like a Chevron station.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm looking at it now.
And the Chevron, is kind of like, it's kind of like a little bit like, the stripes on your arm when you're in the military and whatnot. And I don't know if a lot of people remember or know this, but like, Trump went to military school. He actually has a rank in the military.
That's interesting. I guess that certainly doesn't get brought up very often. Interesting how the Chevron logo is like floating over her head, like The Sims or something, like a character in a
there's all
video
kinds
game.
of stuff to it, right?
And also interesting, I believe, I could be incorrect. In fact, I'm not even going to make a strong statement here. But when it comes to the, the oil reason for everything going on, Venezuela, of course, Iran, Chevron is one of those companies that would be, Trump would or could be doing all this in the service of, not necessarily that like Chevron is the, Illuminati or whatever, but as far as like American corporations who stand to benefit from turning the oil industry upside down in the world, I mean, Chevron's certainly one of them. I think famously Chevron had, I don't know if the actual Chevron deference court case was about Venezuela, but it was somewhere down there in South America. There's some very interesting connections there.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I mean, it again, it's kind of like when Trump went to McDonald's, that sort of had like its own little lifespan for a while. And, every now and then you kind of see that pop up. So you do have to wonder, he's not going to just go to some random gas station for no reason. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. And especially, they're not forgetting to gas up the beast, the presidential limousine. They're not like, whoops, sorry, Mr. President, forgot to gas up before I picked you up. Like this the beast doesn't just drive around at the whim of the president. All of its routes are meticulously planned and secured days in advance before he even drives. So yeah, that's that. That's a very, talk about hyper reality. This is some very specific version of reality meant to say something.
I guess Chevron is one of the largest companies in the world and only second largest oil company based in the US behind ExxonMobil. And what's funny is ExxonMobil is the Rockefeller Mobil, company, basically. It was the John D. Rockefeller Standard Oil.
Oh, interesting.
Is who they are. Yeah.
Perfect.
Not interesting. So it's like, this is kind of interesting. It's almost like sometimes I'm wondering now if the thing like the cardboard cutout, it's like they'll put out stuff and then they'll put out something else to kind of hide what was originally put out that everyone might be talking about in their messaging. It makes me wonder sometimes.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's crazy. Oh, I'm getting a message here from Rumble that the Rumble stream is having difficulty. Apologies if it's being weird and glitchy for the Rumble viewers. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what to do about it. Yeah, man. That's very interesting. Yeah, it's weird. And the fact that this gal is so young and so obviously young, even the fact that like her blazer is like too big, it looks like she's like wearing her dad's blazer. There's an interesting, there's just interesting messaging there, especially considering, Gen Z being a generation who is having a hard time seeing a real future for itself. This presentation of like a very serious, very young professional Secret Service agent, Gen Z actively protecting a Gen Z woman, actively protecting the president at a gas station. There's certainly lots of messages included in this.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for bringing it to my attention, buddy. Always great talking to you. You got anything else on your mind before we check in with some other callers?
Just a really quick thing. Like the other day, I was talking to somebody who, they brought up this thing about it was basically this, what is it? It's called the interactive media bias chart. Because, we were talking about, I had mentioned the drones and how everyone was kind of freaking out about drones and whatnot and news stories. And so they pulled this up to me like, oh, well, I use this chart to identify what news sources are worth, listening to or not. And so it was kind of interesting how it reminded me of your friend again, where sometimes you have to kind of almost not try to have the argument with people because they really will just dig in more if you have that argument. And so what I kind of pivoted to with them was just talking about more in line of, well, I always sort of just ask, what is the conclusion that they want to get from me when they propose a headline?
Right.
And just kind of like ask, and then kind of maybe I thought about like kind of teaching people and training people how to walk through the news stories and learn that part of it rather than just challenging them right off the bat and saying, really, you trust NPR and PBS as the most trustworthy news source,
Yeah,
like, as
totally.
if they're not a bias either.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
very
no,
interesting.
I think you're right. I think that's the way I do it, if I find myself getting into a conversation with somebody who's really usually I'll try to avoid it as best I can. But yeah, you're never gonna have any luck coming in and trying to convince them of something. Usually all you got to do is ask as many questions as possible about their source, if they even have one. And you can kind of just take it from there. I'm looking at this thing, the media bias chart here. All
Yeah,
right.
it was just like, again, it was like the headline for the drones, was almost, it was implying that these drones were going to be attacking California imminently. But then as you dug into the story, you got like this word allegedly,
Yeah.
and some,
Aspired, specifically,
yeah, that's what it
unspecifically.
was. It was aspire. They aspire to.
Yeah.
And so I just thought it was interesting. I was like, this is probably a better way that we should have conversations with other people who don't see through our same lens of just saying, like, training them like, well, if you read past the headline and get like 3 or 4 paragraphs down into this story, then you might start finding the real story, and I think that's where we might have to just be really mindful of that with people, because otherwise we do kind of maybe dig into, like, even like you said, just asking questions is one thing, but also, again, giving them the tools so that they can start to go, wait a minute, I'm
Yeah.
noticing something.
Right. Yeah.
So
And that's the thing. The annoying part is what you're talking about asks for some more energy from people. It takes actual energy to think about thinking. And even the most sort of violently confident people in their opinions really avoid thinking about thinking. One
yeah.
thing I love about this chart, we talked about all the time, the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, the strategies by which the U.S. government or U.S. intelligence uses foreign news outlets to seed stories that can then be used as sources to propagandize Americans. Is basically the CIA's way of propagandizing us. And it was during COVID, we had this whole breakdown, and it came out that India was a country that was used vociferously by U.S. intelligence. They would create fake Indian news outlets. They had found 700 basically fake Indian news outlets that were being used to propagandize America. And in this media bias chart, it goes from, fake or inaccurate or fabricated information to absolutely facts, 100% fact-dense analysis, right? That's the y-axis or the x, I don't know.
Yeah.
And down on the bottom is left and right. So are they left-wing or are they right-wing? So facts to fake and left to right. And right smack dab in the middle is the Hindustan Times, one of our favorite CIA outlets, which is, right in the middle of fact, fiction, left and right is beautiful Hindustan times. Thank you very
That
much.
should just tell you all, right?
That tells you everything you need to know. Yeah. Well, thanks
All right,
so
well,
much
thank
for calling
you.
in, Matt. Very value your thoughts and opinions on everything. Thanks for sharing some light with us.
All right, thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
God bless. Take it easy. One thing before we get to our next caller, I was reminded, first of all, shout out. Okay, got a text from, I think it's Shield Maiden for Christ. Okay, I got to scroll through some chat. I think it was a text from Shield Maiden for Christ who says the music in the video is Waltz of the Flowers. I've been in that dance multiple times. All right, so my bad. I'm wrong. Thanks for the correction. It's not Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. It's called Waltz of the Flowers. I believe it is still from, excuse me, the Nutcracker. So Waltz of the Flowers, there's something very important hidden in the subliminal messaging of Waltz of the Flowers. Let's just take a second of the flowers. Let's see if there's anything weird about this song. It's from Tchaikovsky. I'm just going to head to the Wikipedia page. Oh, that's a very short Wikipedia page. Let's just see. Because if it says like it's written by the CIA, then, you never know. It could be it. Let me put this up on screen for you. Waltz of the Flowers. Waltz of the Flowers, 1892, is a piece of orchestral music from the second act of the Nutcracker. Nailed it. A ballet composed by Tchaikovsky. Tchaikovsky told his fellow musicians he was working on a fantastic ballet called the Nutcracker. It's awfully fun to write a march for tin soldiers, a waltz of the flowers, etc. The waltz is also the last number in his Nutcracker suite. The Waltz of the Flowers is very popular. Thank you, Wikipedia. It's stop. And it's just one sentence. The Waltz of the Flowers is very popular. It has been arranged for various instruments and for various combinations of instruments. Percy Grainger arranged the waltz for a piano solo as paraphrase on Tchaikovsky's Flower Waltz. Walt Disney Studios animated the waltz for the movie Fantasia about a wizard, or I guess a wizard's apprentice, Mickey. There it is. There's the connection to everything, man. Walt Disney, Fantasia, the occult, wizardry, Waltz of the Flowers. Waltz of the Flowers wins Academy Award for animated short film characters. Thumbelina, Janessa, Chrysilla, and Barbie presents Thumbelina. All right. There you go. So Mind Control Extraordinaire Corporation, Walt Disney Studios, using cardboard cutouts of, or AI images of fake images for the controlling of your hyper reality. All right. Next up on the list, we got Be More Busker. Oh, we're going to take Be More Busker's call. But yes, I saw a couple questions. I did bring some pictures of the baby emu. Okay, we will get to the pictures of the baby emu. Stick around. My firstborn son will be on the show. All right, Be More Busker. What's on your mind, buddy? How you doing?
How you doing, man? Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you good and great.
All right, cool. So yeah, dude, like so many things. Like I'm thinking about thinking about those memes that the White House released, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a toddler made them or something. It's like Gen Alpha put their mind to it, or young Zoomer.
Yeah,
You know?
that's the thing. It's called brain rot,
Right?
and it's it sounds sort of like it's some sort of insult, and it used to be, but this is a late Gen Z and Gen Alpha phenomenon. This has now been elevated to a real aesthetic. It's a media aesthetic now, and we've shown brain rot videos before. They're insane. They're crazy. It's just shapes and colors and nonsense and all sorts of references and memes. It's very tightly packed. One thing I think you know, if I'm gonna take an analyst's view of brain rot, there's some very interesting things about it. It is incredibly dense informationally. It moves very quickly. It includes lots of different characters, different memes. You know, it's very silly looking. It's absurd. They'll reference like 30 different TV shows or something. Like Peter Griffin will be there, and then Pikachu's there, and they're all there for just a second, and they all play with this different role. There's lots of flashing colors, very hypnotic.
Yeah.
The music is usually very quick tempo, like lots of techno, EDM, very hectic. And then
Yeah.
the use of super sloppy, super messy transition effects. There's lots of glitches, lots of just nonsense, and it's very abstract, which again goes back to like the Dadaist thing. I mean, talk about hyper reality. You had these art movements in the mid 20th century who basically, you know, got together and they say, look, we're going to create a hyper reality for everybody. This is like our art war or something. And we're doing it to like fritz people's brains, to snap them out of reality, to, or whatever, snap them out of their patterns or something. You know, this is their words. So this brain rot style. And the funny thing about the brain rot style, when you actually are able to focus on it, and here's the thing, it's kind of like those 3D puzzle books where you have to like cross your eyes and not focus your eyes, and then the image appears, right? That's what brain rot is. You don't want to try to focus on anything in the video. You want to just kind of let your brain just like basically hypnotize yourself on purpose. And then so it's putting people in this hypnotic state. And when you listen to the words, there's often like a monologue going on under them, but the monologue will be in like a little kitten's voice or like a baby voice or like some weird voice, right? Sometimes it's like a character's voice, like Peter Griffin or something. And when you kind of enter this hypnotic state and you actually listen to what the words are saying, it's something incredibly deep and like incredibly crazy. Like, you know, a lot of them during the Fed stuff lately, there's a bunch of these brain rot videos that were like giving the history of the Federal Reserve and like giving you the breakdown of why we got to end the Fed or whatever. And it was very like deep libertarian philosophy. So it's very interesting as a, you know, from an analyst perspective, a incredibly dense informational delivery system. And so for the White House to be using it, I mean, hello, the pinnacle of, you know, propaganda outlets straight from the White House using this brain rot style, you know, you can see it being effective. And I think you add that with the fact that a 23-year-old Secret Service agent, you know, is protecting the president. I think there is some very fancy like magic being done to try to change the demographics of like who supports the White House or not. It's very interesting.
It's
Thanks for
creepy, dude. It's creepy. That's like the you got SpongeBob, some stupid SpongeBob thing, and then kaboom! It shows the video of something blowing up from a plane or something. And like what's that style of video? Like it's kind of like black and white, kind of like when they show
like
the
night vision, like night vision.
Yeah, night vision. Yeah, totally like sort of night vision kind of. And it's just there's something about that that just really is disheartening to see. It's just like crazy because they think it's funny and cute, and then kaboom. You know, it's just like after every single one of these memes, it was them blowing something up, or like a lot of the boats and all that stuff that like
Planes, things like that.
like we took out the Iranian Navy or something, but I think they're really not happy. I think especially the one that survived, I think he's probably going to be on the war path if he
Who?
survives. The son who
The new ayatollah. Yeah,
yeah.
I've heard all sorts of things. There's some reports that he's dead. There's other reports that he's in a coma and lost a
Oh, really?
leg in an attack.
I
Yeah.
didn't know. Wow.
Yeah. And we
So
may never know. I mean, for me, epistemologically, who knows if he ever even existed at all? But yeah, there's lots of different stories. It's the confusion is part of the plan, I think.
yeah, like the Ayatollah, like how long are they going to keep that rolling? Like I don't know. Like what was so the last thing that was said that he was like blown up or something. So is that what it was? Or
We just don't know.
yeah.
It's
I mean, like from
think
the
about
mainstream propaganda news.
well, from the Iranian perspective, they could just say anything. We have no idea. They could
Okay,
have
great.
somebody totally else in charge. I think it would be silly for Iran to actually tell the world who the leader is. But they need the Iranian people to think that there is a leader, but
Yeah.
to actually give the identity of the real leader is, there's a 99% chance that they would just lie about that.
Yeah.
There's really no way of knowing, which is why the whole thing, from the cardboard to is he dead, is he alive, from the mainstream to the Iranian stuff, like we just have to remember it's all hyper reality, all of it. It's all
some kind of hilarity to that cardboard thing, man. Like it's something really weird and hilarious about it.
and something true too.
And
That's the other
tragic.
that's the other thing about like hyper reality is it doesn't mean that the message isn't true. Like, what is the message of the cardboard ayatollah? It's like you could see it from a couple different angles. You could see it as like, okay, it's fake, right? They're putting up an image of a leader. Is he really the leader or not? Doesn't matter. But it's also made of cardboard, so there's like a fragility to that. There's an impermanence to that. There's just all these different truths that you can try to discern, and at the same time, there's an equal amount of untruths attached to it.
Right.
And so the truth might be in the untruth of it. Anyways,
I guess it might be like subjective, or I don't know.
yeah, it's just hyper reality, man. Like fake isn't even the right word, right? I'll use the word fake just to put a point on it. But hyper reality, fake isn't the right word. Hyper reality really is the right word. It is, it is something other than literally true.
I know. It's just like some sort of like spirit of some sort. Anyway, I'll let you go. Thanks for having me up, man.
Yeah, right on, buddy. Great to talk to you as always.
Great to talk to you, my friend. All right.
Talk to you again.
Let me see. All right.
I got you. Bye. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Real quick, let's look at some baby emus. Who wants to look at some baby emus? Let's do it. I'll tell you this before I show you the pictures. Let me just tell you, it is incredibly difficult to take a picture of a baby emu. They don't stop moving. They are all over the place. They are incredibly curious. You cannot put a camera in front of this emu without making them just go nuts. Okay. So I'll show you some pictures here for those who might be new to the show. Been trying to hatch emu eggs. I have some emu. They're a mating pair. Been trying to hatch the eggs for 3 years. Had a whole spiritual lesson about that for 3 years, had not hatched one. And then at the least probable, least convenient, least expected moment, I ended up having one of the many eggs hatch. And that was about 10 days ago. So let me go like this. Dun, da, da, da. Here's my son. Let's start with this one. Boop. There he is. He has moved from the brooder into a larger cage inside the house so he can run around. Very cute. Note the stripes. Looks like a little tiger. Let's see here. See if I can have a closer one. I took a few because it's very difficult. You'll see the red light. He's got a little heat lamp in there right here. See how he's blurry. He's going to be blurry forever. I promise. He's not blurry in real life. That's just him not standing still for pictures. Very fun, very cute. Here's this one. You'll notice in the background there's a stuffed sloth for him to cuddle with. And yes, this is also a feather duster hanging down because he crawls under it and pretends like it's his mother emu. There, he gets to sleep among the feathers. Let's take a look at this one. There he is, coming at the camera. Gonna bite your little nose off. Very cute. And back to this one, a little bit better of a picture there. He's wobbly. He's like a drunk little toddler. I think he's about 10 days old now. And interesting, fun news today. Here I am presenting my firstborn emu. Today is the day. This is day 45 on the next batch of emu eggs. So when I get done with the show today, how many are there? I think there's 7. 7 more emu eggs will move from the incubator into the hatcher, and then we'll be waiting, hopefully, less than 10 days for them to hatch. So we'll see how that goes. Monica asks, did you name that naughty little emu? No, I have not named him yet. It's impossible to find out the gender of the emu. I guess we say sex now. It's hard. You can't find out the sex of the emu when they're this small. What you got to do is you got to send the egg that it hatched from to get it DNA tested. So I have not sent that off yet, but that is on my to-do list to send the egg off to an emu DNA sexing company. All right, there you go. Thank you for reminding me to do that, everybody who reminded me to do that. And hopefully I'll keep you posted. They grow up so fast, you know. All right, we got another caller on the line here. We're going to say hi to Sir David G. Sir David G, what's up, buddy? You're on the air. What's on your mind today?
Like usual, too much. But
yeah.
I had an interesting, it's kind of in line with the whole, I didn't even know about that ayatollah AI thing. I don't keep up with hardly any. I barely even catch y'all's show anymore. I hate to admit that, but I still send you guys money. But so this guy, I wasn't really in the conversation. I was kind of there with somebody else, and these two guys were having a conversation. But he's talking about how great AI is and how he's using it for work now to so he can create presentations. He works for the telecom company. So and it's funny, in that same conversation, they're naming the rollout of this huge fiber investment. So I guess it is coming. I know last time we were talking, I was saying it's not, but it is. Anyway, it's named after some Greek god. So, there's that.
Oh, classic. You know what the name is?
I do, but I don't want to say it here just because it'll give too much away,
I see. Yeah.
I'm not trying to get myself in any trouble.
No problem.
Because I can't give out any specifics.
I get it.
You never know who's listening. So, but he loves it, man. Like I'd never he's the first person I've actually met who had such a great opinion of it, you know?
Of AI, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, he's all on board, man. He's
Yeah.
all on board. He's like, it's the future. Oh man, I'm getting, you know, I'm trying to get put in charge of it, you know, because now I guess, you know, the telecom companies are starting to integrate it more and more into what they're doing.
Mhm.
And this all new system they're rolling out, all this fiber, they're going to be unifying the devices. So I didn't get a whole lot of specific information, just
Yeah.
so basically it's this big huge thing where they're, you know, bringing in AI, and now all the equipment is getting replaced. So full
There
on
it is.
equipment upgrade for the end of line switching is, so if you're into networking, you'll understand what I'm saying, but it's basically the old, you know, what the old telephone systems used to do back in the day, where you'd have the people at the switchboard pulling and changing the plugs, you know. I don't know if you ever seen
Yeah.
clips of that stuff.
Yeah.
So this is the next iteration of that. It's all fully automated, and, you know, it's just all fiber and all AI controlling everything. So
Does this change your opinion of the timeline a little bit? I mean, last time you shared your thoughts about that, it was more or less we've got a long ways to go because
yeah,
the
it does.
infrastructure doesn't even exist.
Yeah, because it's funny, both things happening in the same day, where I'm hearing this conversation with this guy, and then that video that you just showed, kind of, I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I was trying to keep people from being too anxious and fearful about it. I mean, I still don't think you
Totally.
should be fearful and anxious about it, but I do think it's going to be happening a little bit faster than I thought.
Mhm.
I'm willing to admit, you know, I don't have everything right. You know, there's no
Hey,
possible way for any of us to.
gotta do it, man. Gotta do it. And with new information, that's okay. We can change our thoughts with new information. So I don't think
Yeah, I mean,
anybody
it's
can.
still, you know, from what they're doing, you're still probably like 5 years
Mhm.
at least, if not a little bit more. But, you know, um, because you're talking about replacing equipment at every cent. Well, I don't even want to say that.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, the
In
thing
every
is,
building.
5 years, I mean, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair conservative estimate. I mean, of course,
Hmm.
those, Sam Altman types are saying it's going to be 2 years, but,
Well,
5 years, I mean, look, it's been 6 years since lockdowns. 5
right.
years, that'll be here sooner than any of us want it to be. Whether it's going to be an AI takeover or not, 5 years is going to happen really fast.
Yeah, most definitely. And the really, um, you know, do you keep up with, I don't know, let me see. Do you keep up with like computer technology? Like, do you build your own computers and stuff? Are you keeping up with any of the?
Yeah, I
Um,
have. I mean, I have a general understanding, and I generally follow the new tech that comes out.
well, have you been keeping up the RAM prices at all? Because apparently,
Mhm.
like
Yeah,
RAM and storage is just ridiculous right now.
yeah, yeah. It's crazy.
Um, so I'm also wondering if now it's not just, you know, the AI, the data centers that's chewing up all the RAM and, you know, whatever other miscellaneous chips that go into these devices. Well, now if they're rolling out this whole new system, right? All new equipment, like nothing is staying. It's all going to be redone. Okay, that's a lot of equipment. That's a lot
Yeah.
of, you know, switching, you know, telecommunications equipment, fiber optic equipment. That's a lot of stuff. So, you know, I'm wondering if this is um, has a lot more to do with that as well than just
Oh,
the
for
AI
sure.
data centers, you know?
I mean, and the whole economy right now, what people are realizing, uh, every, I mean, the general good numbers on the economy. I mean, there's lots of different things you could point out, but in general, graph go up is pretty much all from AI companies investing in each other and specifically investing in the building of the infrastructure from the data centers to the fiber to the switch. I mean, the whole economy, at least as far as like the stock market is concerned, is pretty much all propped up. The whole thing, everything good about it, which doesn't really affect most of us, comes from building the AI infrastructure, which includes the RAM, includes the chips, it's kind of all of it. It's kind of, I mean, in a way, it's almost impressive that one mission. I mean, we think back to like wartime economies, like the last time the American economy was like fully devoted towards one goal like this was like World War II, where it doesn't matter what factory you had, doesn't matter what job you had, suddenly you were doing that job for the war effort. Everything was going to you. Women were giving up their nylons to go to the war. The whole economy was a war economy, and that war economy was great. And it's interesting because, of course, we have a war now, but the war economy, quote unquote, of today is this like AI war, this AI race, which, some people would pretty confidently state that, whatever other things are going on in the world, it's all to cover for, justify, or benefit the sort of AI race in a way.
Yeah. So I'm still where it puts me now though, like with eschatology though, the jury's still out for me. I'm less convinced that we're still waiting on the second coming. Simply because I think it was Sir Psalm 40 in the chat. Don't we need a temple? We are the temple. We are the temple, right? So, everybody's pushing this Israel, build a third temple and do all this nonsense. Well, I mean, what was the point of Jesus? If, why are we looking to them? They had their chance, is how I see it. I don't want to get too deep into that, but
no, yeah, I know. I mean, that's the rub, isn't it? But there is, of course, we wrestle with eschatology in a couple ways. One of them is what is true, the other one is we look around and we see end times eschatology being used by the elites all around us to basically justify taking the end times timeline as instruction or as prescribed, like a prescription, like this is what you are to do. And it's just interesting that you say that, because today a clip came out from Netanyahu where he allegedly says we return of the Messiah, but this will not happen next Thursday. There is a minute and 22-second clip. I don't know if we need to watch it, but is the timing, timing is impeccable, because that is kind of the thing with Christians, and especially Christians who are not new to the topic. I mean, if you came into the end times eschatology fringe Christian community in 2012, we are really having to, really pay attention because suddenly the propaganda machine is loves talking about Armageddon, loves using the end times or the eschatological timeline to justify the war, things like this. And yeah, it should make us more skeptical than ever, which is kind of weird to say, I think, from our perspective in the context of, biblical prophecy. But skepticism, I think, is going to really benefit everybody involved.
Yeah, and how I'm trying to look at it, like, I'm not trying to sound like I'm somebody that knows something. I don't know anything. I know just as much as everybody else, which is nothing. We have such a small window into what's really going on in history. And you know, with this whole AI thing, they could either be, you know, creating this whole situation to where we don't know what's real anymore. So once again, you know, how do I say it? You know, we look to authority, some type of authority figure to tell us what's real, because that's just how we are. It's like the Israelites, when they were, you know, brought out of Egypt, they wanted a king. And God was like, you don't need a king. And they're like, no, give us a king, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's always this appeal to authority. So they could either be building that, you know, quote unquote beast system that fits the futurist eschatology, right? Or they could be, you know, using this coupled with, you know, whatever hologram technology they can project into the air to create this false invasion,
Right.
that they need to build an army for, to go to war against. Like, if you believe, you know, we're in Revelation 20, that's the narrative on that side of it. So to me, it can go either way. And I think when you really stop and think about it, it's been that way about so many things. You know, pick a side, right? It's like another reason to divide ourselves. But when it comes down to it, what do you really have that you know for certain? It's nothing outside of your own experience from day-to-day life. You really don't know anything. So we have to rely on Jesus, and that's it.
Amen.
And what did he say? Did he say divide yourselves over eschatology? No, he didn't say that. He didn't say divide yourselves over anything. Really, he said, you know, love people, love your enemies. Yeah, you know. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where I am now. It's like it could go either way for me, and I don't really care if it goes one way. Okay, cool. If it goes the other way, okay, cool. Because I have Jesus. So what else do I need?
Well, I mean, that's the fun too, because whether or not we're right about the end of the world, it's all the same to us. You know, what if this is a series of events that are truly going to lead to the return of Christ? Great. If
Yeah.
not, it doesn't really change how I'm going to be living. I know that might be a, you know, that might be a privileged position, but I wouldn't be doing anything different right now, whether or not Jesus came in the next, you know, few weeks or whatever they're trying to say. So
Exactly.
yeah, amen, man.
Exactly.
I love it. Thanks for calling in, buddy.
Yeah, for sure,
Appreciate
man.
your insight and your wisdom on all these sorts of things.
Well, hold on. Don't be using words like that, man. You might make me think I'm something. You know? All right. Anyway, good
Through
talking
Christ, brother. Through Christ.
That's right. That's
Amen.
right.
All right, buddy. Take it easy.
God bless.
I want to thank a couple people for sending some texts. Remember, if you haven't done it yet, take out your phone, open up the text messages, text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. That's Canary to 877-740-3226. And I'll start sending you a text before we go live throughout the week. Fun part is you can text me back at that number, which is fun. You can text whatever you want. But we do have some prayer requests coming in. And so I want the producers out there to listen up. And who are the producers? Well, it's you. Well, that didn't go.
Producers, assemble!
That's right. Anybody out there with ears to hear and a tongue to speak, we're going to pray for some fellow Canarians here. Let's see here. Judd the Atheist texted. Judd, thanks for texting in. Judd the Atheist says, Judd the Atheist with a request. Producers, please, for sweet baby Rosie, who is doing great, maybe just a little push over the finish line. Okay, yes. Yeah, you know, it was a really incredible testimony from Judd the Atheist. He is an atheist who tunes into the show. He's a fan of the show. We love having him here. And, you know, he's working things out with fear and trembling for himself, but he has sent a couple prayer requests in, I believe, and God is doing amazing things for him and his family. And so baby Rosie, who is on the mend. We're going to keep baby Rosie in our prayers, and that we can finish out strong, that the Lord can finish bringing healing and strength and comfort to the whole family, because goodness gracious, these cute little Canarians. I was trying to remember exactly the details. Maybe I never had the details, but whatever the details may be, producers, we're keeping little baby Rosie in our prayers to just get her over the finish line here. So thank you, Judd the Atheist, and thank you, producers, for that. Who's this? 940 text and says, please pray for me and my family. We bought our first home in January 16th, spent one night there before a catastrophic plumbing problem hit us during the ice storm in Texas. My wife was 9 months pregnant with our third Canary. It's now March 11th, and we still haven't been able to move back to our home. Best estimate is $30,000 is to get everything fixed. God is faithful, but right now we are a little demoralized. I need Canary Cry Clubhouse today. All right, 954. Yeah, goodness, what a nightmare. We've been kind of hearing some of these real estate related prayer requests recently. So Lord, take the reins on that one. $30,000. Yeah, I don't know. Pipe burst and cause a bunch of damage. That's a total nightmare on the first night that you slept in the house. Yeah. Well, these are the times we have no choice but to have faith that God's glory will be shining through, and whatever. I mean, we may never know. That's the thing, right? We may never know what the purpose, or if there is a purpose for anything that happens. But we have no choice. We have no choice but to move forward. We can't go back. So we'll be praying for you, 940, praying for you, your wife, which I guess, 9 months in January. That third little Canary must be a couple months old now. Praying for the whole family, and just some supernatural provision for whatever it is. What I love, the times in life that I'm most impressed with the way God takes care of business. We value our troubles in dollars, right? Most of us, many of us, perhaps all of us, can often put a dollar amount on the exact problems that we're having in our lives, right? And by our logic, if that money appeared, if that price point appeared in our bank account or in an envelope in our mailboxes, that's the solution, right? That would solve the problem for us. But what I love when watching God do his business is when the problem gets fixed outside of that sort of monetary understanding. And that could look so many different ways. Okay, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but often that looks like God working through his people, right? Or even better, and happens, I would say, almost just as often, working through people who would not consider themselves God's people. The people who don't believe in God, the people who don't have faith, the people who, whatever, maybe have something like anti-faith. When God uses those people to bless, his children, talk about a miracle, huh? And it's part of the fun part. You don't have to be a Christian to be used for God's glory. We see it over and over and over in the Bible, Old Testament especially. Often the worst option, often the least logical person or tool is used to bring glory to God. So, producers, we're praying for 940 as well, that there's just some supernatural series of events that gets 940 and his beautiful family either back into their house, nice and fixed. Maybe it's a different house. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but we're holding faith for you, 940. God bless you. Okay, that looks like that. Just scrolling through, seeing if there's any other things. Want to make sure that we don't skip anything. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do for now. Text the word Canary to whatever the number is, 877-740-3226. Okay, we got a couple more callers sitting in line. We're going to say hi. We're going to talk to Modern Day Bible Study. Let's bring it up on stage. How's it going, Modern Day Bible Study?
Oh, Basil, how's it going for you?
You know what? You know what? I'm just hearing a baby emu chirp in the background, and I am doing my fatherly duty to have faith that whatever problem he's having, he will figure it out.
You know, I completely understand that actually with my little one. So
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I spoke quite a few episodes ago about how I felt like last year was the year of rest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also was compelled to say that February was when that year of rest was going to end. And I wholeheartedly agree with that now, especially with all the events that have been happening just personally in my life, that the Holy Spirit has led me to say February was going to end all of that. Now,
Okay.
I have been woken up by my little one every single night, and he stays up from midnight till like 8 in the morning sometimes. And
Party
am
animal.
I am so exhausted. Yeah, he's nocturnal. But it started happening consistently in February. And I've talked to doctors, I talked to, family members and stuff, and I'm just like, well, what is happening here? And so finally I was just like, okay, they keep saying the same thing and none of this is working. So I turned to God and I prayed. And then all of a sudden I remembered when I said that last year was the year of rest because of how much I was able to just rest. And now I am so sleepless. So I've been ignoring the news. I've been ignoring, all of my spiritual duties because I'm so concentrated on this new spirit in my life, which is my baby. And so I started watching the news while he's been awake and playing with him. So it led me to a bunch. Now, are you ready for this?
Ready, Freddie.
All right. So underneath my title, it says, "The time is now." Now is no more time for rest. As you were talking about the waltz of the flowers, I kind of was delving into that while you were speaking a lot. And it kind of led me to a bunch of different things. So, like you said, with the whole Fantasia thing for modern day, yeah, the wizardry that they were definitely kind of putting up. But also, it's the 13th ballet score that is played in the second act. So I looked into Acts 2, and that led me down to, I think, the real purpose of why they are playing this song. Not only does the song.
Uh-oh. 1 second, if you can hear me, Modern Day Bible Study, you got all robot-y voiced for a second. Somebody's trying to keep the truth down. Can you hear me now? Oh, there she goes. All right, we'll give her a second, see if she comes back. Hopefully she remembers all this wonderful stuff. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send a little message. Nobody freak out. Having some audio issues. Okay. Are you back?
I think I'm back.
A little bit. You're a little scratchy. Let's see if
Of
it
course.
stabilizes.
Someone's trying to call me, so of
Oh,
course they
yeah,
don't want me to say it once again. All
that'll
right,
do it.
all right, is this better?
Yep, you're back. Perfect.
Okay. So it talks about the Mouse King, which, I mean, if you're talking about the cardboard crown, there you go. And
Yeah,
it's also,
okay. Hold on 1 second, just
yeah,
so everybody caught that and just so I catch it. You're talking about Waltz of the Flowers, which is the
yes,
song in the background of the cardboard ayatollah thing that we were
yes,
talking about earlier. Okay, this
yes,
is what you tracked down. I forgot about the Mouse King in the
yep,
Nutcracker with the cardboard crown, so that's very interesting. Okay, for those who missed the connection, that is a reference from the title of this thing, which I had no plan for, but okay. All right. We're all on track now.
And
Please continue.
yeah, they're also in the land of the sweets.
Mhm.
And biblically, if you're looking at Acts 2, actually verse 1 through 4, it's the details of the Pentecost, which the Holy Spirit descends on the disciples. So if you go through 1 through 13, it's the coming of the Spirit. And then if you go through 37 through 41, Peter tells them to repent and to be baptized for the forgiveness of sins. And then 42 through 47 is the early church community. Now, there's 50 days after Passover where Pentecost happens. So it's quite amazing that there's 47, verses right there. I didn't get to 50 yet because, I came on here. But yeah, it talks about the restoration of the Jewish people. Now, in the Bible, what is Iran? Iran is Persia.
Mhm.
And today, in biblical, prophecy, it's Medo-Persia, which plays a huge role in conquering Babylon. And I don't know if you know this, but ever since 2016, Trump has been claimed by evangelistic, preachers and stuff, that he is referred to as Cyrus, which is Cyrus the Great, which is
Right.
Isaiah 45, verse 1. It talks about how the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. So, with all of this happening, and then, Trump saying, well, on March 2nd, Trump has now claimed, like on, I can't remember what article it was, but I think it was on Military Times, that he is claimed to be the anointed by Jesus to light signal fire in Iran. And, when you connect kind of like all of the dots, I always thought that like Gog and Magog, I always knew Magog was Russia, but I didn't know what Gog was. And everybody was talking about China. But actually, it's Elam, which is Iran in biblical references, Persia. So if you have Gog and Magog, and then you have Babylon, which of course we're kind of residing in Babylon with all the great powers and everything. With AI, we are the main hub for the IA advances with all of the tech people. Trump has met with all the tech people at the same table. Everything is just kind of collecting. So now we are actually in the second act of their huge plan as we speak. And that's why the time is now, because we need to pray consistently for those that will be fighting, those that are, what's it called? Confused, misled, because this is not the rebuilding of the temple. This is going to be the rebuilding or the building of the Antichrist. And so I know a lot of people will say Antichrist is not in the Bible, but there is the false prophet, which is in the Bible. And that will be what they're
The man of
rebuilding.
lawlessness and there's all sorts of characters in there.
Yes, exactly. So we are in these times, and prayer is going to be our greatest weapon. And as I think it was Sir David G that was just speaking, that we need Jesus. And I've written a song that says Jesus is here, and that is for a reason, because he is here in the scene already. And I can't say anything more, but we just need to have faith and believe in that God has our backs. And if we turn to God and not worry so much, like I was worrying about my little one not sleeping through the night, it actually led me to get back into my research, get back into what I had been neglecting, while taking care of all of my, personal life as well. So now we just have to really fight, and fight with love, as Sir David G was saying. Love your enemies, love your neighbors. It's going to be pretty massive here in the next coming year. Actually Pentecost, I have a feeling, this Passover is on April Fool's Day. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, it's on April 1st for, on the calendar date. Yeah, so that's going to be a really big day for a lot of reasons.
Wow. Yeah, that's very exciting. It's interesting. It kind of feels like, I mean, when we spoke, I mean, even the past few times, and I had my time kind of uh and my feelings about 2025, and then you came on the show, I think it was late 2025, and it really brought a lot of clarity for me about 2025. And then 2026, we have it almost feels like um when I'll just say Watchmen, if there's Watchmen on the wall, right? And they work kind of in shifts, where one shift's time for them to step down from the wall and the new shift come up and sort of take the place. Because yeah, it's interesting. It's especially with a community like ours where we're so tight. Many of the Canarians have heard each other's voices and been in the same communities for many years like that. um I hear Sir David G, and sounds like it's whatever's God's got going on in his life has him focusing on other things or refocusing in certain ways with either his life or his faith or whatever. And I think there's a lot of people that sort of identify with that. But then I think myself, as I find myself maybe a little bit more on the shift schedule with you. Maybe it's time for some of us to step up. We had our 2025. Whether that was rest or whether that was preparation or whatever, and our 2026 is we're stepping up to take our Watchman shift or something like that. And I think that's great. I think if it weren't like that, I think we'd all get too exhausted. We
Mhm.
can't, we would just be totally worn out, both physically and spiritually. So I love what God's doing here, and I love what he's doing with you, and what an unexpected funny time for him to call you back. That what a beautiful way he's made time for your attention back on these things after your 2025.
Yeah, all glory be to God. And yeah, I wouldn't have anything that I have today if it wasn't for, just trusting and keep going, like you said, is the shifts, because there are points in times when that's why they say that if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And so if you truly are fighting, for God's kingdom, for King Jesus, then it will be exhausting. And if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But if you are still going through that fight, and just knowing that what you're going through, no matter what sorrows, no matter what pain, and you keep fighting, then just know that you are a warrior. You are strong. You can go through anything. So even though you feel down, feel like you're breaking, that's what builds up the spirit to keep going.
Amen. Amen. God bless your modern day Bible study, and may he bless you in this beautiful time of life right now where you have such cute little was I guess at the very least a cute little noisemaker who is making sure you are staying awake at the wall during the night shift there.
Well, it's wonderful. He's just starting to laugh now. So that's just such a blessing, and it melts the heart every single time you hear it. So, and to
Yeah.
you as well. You are now a new father. So
Yeah.
congratulations to you too.
Thank you very much. It's finally happened. I finally understand all the parents.
All
All
right. Well,
right,
take
modern
care,
day Bible
Basil.
study.
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Booyah. Okay, beautifully done. Let's see here. I think we got one more caller hanging out in the back room, and we're gonna say hi to the one, the only, Mr. Sir James. Sir James, how's it going, buddy?
Oh, I'm okay.
Good.
I took your advice. I've started the process of finding that men's group.
Okay, how's that going?
And, there's a place called the Christian Life Center,
Okay.
and they meet on Mondays. So I'm thinking on going over there on Monday. There was another place called Crossroads, but I don't like Crossroads, but it's just me. That's my
Sure.
If you never heard of Crossroads, you'd understand what I'm talking about.
Doesn't ring any bells to me, but I'm glad you found a couple different options.
Yeah.
If one doesn't,
This is the one that more closely. This is the one that more closely aligned with my beliefs as far as my faith.
Sure. Well, don't throw away the number for the other one, because let me tell you, as someone who has gone through cycles like this, it's really annoying sometimes. But there are times where God.
I understand what you're saying.
Hold on.
I understand what you're saying.
I'm getting some sort of rustling from your side. Is there a?
I'm sorry. Yeah, that was me moving my phone. Sorry about that.
Okay. Just making sure.
No, I understand what you're saying, but the other place that I was mentioning to you is I first came across this place when I was with my best friend and his wife before they got married, before I went to their wedding. And they were looking for wedding rings when we went to the mall, right? And that's when we found this church that was connected to the mall. And this church is called Crossroads. Well, instead of your traditional cross, you would expect on a church, right? This church had an X as its symbol.
What is that? The St. Thomas cross? Is that what it's called?
No, it's called Crossroads.
No, I know, but the X. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, the X, and my conspiracy theory brain and how it goes, I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think I would be comfortable at that kind of a church. And then one of my best friends, who's also a Christian, told me, stay away from Crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
So I took his advice on that. Stay away from Crossroads.
Yeah. Well, I mean, wouldn't it be hilarious if that's the place that God wants to call you? But St. Andrew's Cross is what it's called. It was the cross that St. Andrew, I guess, was, let's see, one of Jesus's apostles and brother of St. Peter. Oh, I forgot Peter and Andrew were brothers. Anyways, yeah, well, there you go. Good. Sounds good. I hope the one that you want to go to works out really good. It was going to be inconvenient and hilarious if that one doesn't work out.
I have a personal prayer request.
Okay, shoot.
I love my brothers.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my brothers, it's really weird because all three of us are sort of dealing with addictions, and we're dealing with different addictions, which is so funny because they're literally different addictions. My younger brother is dealing with alcoholism. The reason why I say this is kind of an urgent prayer. My brother has allowed his alcoholism to get to the point where he is suffering an inguinal hernia.
Mm.
So he's suffering a hernia. That's how bad his alcoholism has gotten. I've tried to tell him, if you want it to go away, you need to stop drinking. I tried to tell him in love. I don't really know what to do other than pray for him. I was thinking about doing the same thing, like the advice you gave me, and I was going to tell him, hey, brother, you need to find a men's group, similar to what I'm trying to find, and go to that thing, and maybe that'll help him. But I mean, my brother's a grown man, and he's gonna do what he wants. If he's serious about stopping, he'll stop. I can't force him. I can't force my other brother to stop, marijuana. I can't stop that. I can give him advice. I could say, say, hey, that's ruining your life or whatnot. But I just ask for your prayers for my brother Ryan.
Yeah, of course.
And pray that the Lord softens his heart, and not just softens his heart, but to clear his clouded mind. Because I think the problem is because of his alcoholism, he's not sober. He's not sober of mind, and ideas are coming into his head that I think don't make any sense, and he doesn't know that.
How long has he had the drinking problem?
He's had it for quite a while. We tried to get him an intervention a couple of years back, but he didn't want to do it because I think he was afraid of shame, maybe shame, or as far as like possibly losing his job. But I don't think he understands that. I think you would rather want to lose your job than lose your life.
Yeah, well, that's part of the insanity of an addiction. There's a certain insanity of addiction that, I mean, talk about hyperreality. It sort of colors everything in your life, and everything is perceived and sort of analyzed through the filter of the substance or of the addiction, which is why logic almost never leads anyone to take care of their problems. They usually have to come to some impossible obstacle as a result of their insanity. And it's very sad. It's very hard to watch happen, especially to someone that you love, especially when it's gone on so long.
When the enemy gets inside of his head and tells him, you don't need to go get that surgery or whatever until it's bigger or what. I mean, I'm getting a deeper understanding what it really means to be sober of mind and why it's so important to be sober of mind, because otherwise the enemy can get inside your head and start to convince you of things that aren't true.
Yeah. I mean, he's very good at that. He's very good at that in almost every situation. Yeah, well, we'll certainly be praying for him. What's your brother's name? Do you want to share? Or
yes, his name is Ryan Johnson.
Ryan Johnson. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's wake up the producers here.
Producers, assemble!
Yeah, we'll be praying for Ryan, and I would say, it's good to remember that it's interesting to perceive you and your brothers all sharing this. You have this one thing in common, and that is the problem, that is addiction. And addiction can come in so many forms. And as you're learning, and you've probably learned long ago, there's almost nothing we can do to talk somebody into it. It requires a drastic and radical event. And it's interesting to watch, the various people who have suffered from addiction that I've known over the years. It is an insanity, because from the outside, you'll see event after event or problem after problem caused by their addiction that you think, man, one of these has to be the one. One of these has to be the one that snaps or something.
Yeah,
especially a medical condition. You got a clock, you got a timer.
Yes, and that's the thing I'm concerned about, because I don't know how much more time he has.
Has he ever been a Christian? Is he a Christian? What's his relationship with faith? Do you know?
I want to say he's a Christian, but as my mom would try and convince me, my mom has she's walking pretty closely with the Lord right now, so has a different outlook on this than I do as far as my brother. I want to say he's a Christian. I want to say he knows God, but then if he does truly know God,
well,
would
I'm
he
not
be
so
would he be
interested.
saying the things he says when he's drunk?
Right.
And it's like the enemy's using him to attack my mom while he's drunk.
Yeah, I'm less interested in sort of an analysis of his faith or not, but does he claim to be a Christian? Does he go to church, or does he,
At one
is that
time he
something you
did
guys
long
talk
ago.
about?
Yeah, at one time he did long ago, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm holding out faith that for everybody fighting this kind of battle, that there is that God certainly has a plan. And it's sort of an annoying thing to hear, and it's an even more annoying thing to say, because it's often such an impotent thing to hear, or often an impotent thing to say. But there's a mystery to these things, that our faith, or rather our logic, our own logic, can't account for. But I think you're right, and to a degree, at certain times, unless the Holy Spirit brings us some sort of inspiration, or the Holy Spirit acts in his life, the only thing we can do is to pray, man. And I will certainly have Canarians all over the world praying for Ryan, and hopefully he comes to a knowledge of his insanity in a way that preserves some of the time and opportunity that he has, not only to come back to Christ, but to begin the journey of dealing with his addiction. And I pray overall to bring healing to your family, man. It sounds like, the whole family is navigating some pretty difficult situations. So
It
we'll be
has
praying for him.
become that. Unfortunately, my brother's alcohol addiction has, as what you would expect, has caused a lot of problems in the family.
I would encourage you.
Interactions with family members.
Yeah, I would encourage you, Sir James. Once we orient our mind and orient our will and start taking actions and stepping out on the path that the Lord has us on, when we finally ourselves wake up and start moving in the direction that God wants us, the adversary is very good at finding very legitimate distractions. So I'd encourage you to, while it is very difficult to watch our loved ones go through things like this, I would encourage you to stay focused on what the Lord's bringing you through your, your journey through your own addiction, because we can often get into a place where the problems we have with other people, or the problems other people have, can sort of supersede the attention that it requires for ourselves to do what we need to do. Your brother's on a path, and God has a plan for that path, and you may have a role to play in that. But I really encourage you to focus on, dealing with the plank in our own eye.
Yes.
And
I agree.
because I don't want you to. It's easy to feel some sort of responsibility for the failure of someone we love to handle an addiction. That's kind of part of the whole thing. That's what makes addiction such a problem, is not only does it ruin our lives, but it starts to take over the lives of others. And, obviously your family has those obstacles to navigate through. But for you personally, I would pray that the Lord really keeps you focused on the journey he's taking you through. And I'm glad you went out. You found that group, man. So you're going to go this next Monday?
This coming Monday, yes. My
Coming
plan is to
Monday?
go. Even though it's going to be really cold, I'm gonna go out there this coming Monday. Yes, that's my plan.
Journey forth. Good, man. I'm happy to hear
Yeah.
that, buddy. I'll be praying for you. We'll have the whole team praying for you, buddy.
Thank you for that. I really
Amen.
appreciate your caring, Basil. You are a true friend.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy that the Lord gives me the opportunity to meet people like you. And look, we're all in this together, buddy. So as long as the Lord keeps having you call back, I'd love to hear the update next week. And hopefully it doesn't lead you to go any place that you don't want to go. I got a good feeling about your judgment on this group. So make sure to call back. Let us know how it goes.
I will.
All right, buddy. Take it easy. God bless you.
You too. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. There you go. Good job, Sir James. Making it happen. Of course, praying for Ryan. Goodness gracious. Yeah. Yeah. Addiction is such a pain in the butt. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that, people. But addiction is a real pain in the butt, and it's a real pain in everybody else's butt, too. So keep that in mind. All right, we got one last caller who jumped into the back room here. We're going to say hi before we land the plane. No Clubhouse would be complete without a call from our Russian handler. Let's say hi. How do I do this? There we go. All right, Russian handler, how you doing? Thanks for calling in.
Hey, I'm gonna be quick. I'm not gonna take a whole lot of time.
Okay.
I've heard this theory, which I kind of agree with, but it's a relatively new study that's exploring that in its core, what addiction is somebody trying to fill a void of some kind, whether it's being, I don't know, things like connection, for example, or pain, or some kind of suffering in their life, and they're trying to fix. And it makes a lot of sense in my head too.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It does. So I will finish with a quote by C.S. Lewis, of course. Human history is the long, terrible story of man trying to find something other than God, which will make him happy.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
that's in a nutshell what it is. And
that's great.
And no, you can't make anybody arrive to that conclusion. Everybody gets there on their own, hopefully eventually.
Yeah, amen. Amen. That is so good. Yeah, that C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis has said and written actually quite a bit of things that are important to people recovering from addiction. I don't know if he appears in like AA material or something, but C.S. Lewis is quite the individual quoted often by various people who have gone through addiction that I've known. So that's very good that you brought that.
I've recently purchased a bunch of his journals on audio book, basically, that I've been listening. And it's amazing how 100 years ago he was so relevant to today.
I know, it's crazy. But both, I mean, I really want to do that too. Maybe the audio is the thing to do it. C.S. Lewis and what is it, G.K. Chesterton, both of those guys. I'm just, every time I stumble across something of theirs, it's just like the most relevant, most intense, like awe-inspiring quote that can be applied to such the like worst torments of life. So that's good. I'll have to check that out. Well, God bless you, Russian handler. Thank you for, I don't know. I hear you have children in the background. So if you need to go.
You can hear them. Yeah.
I'm happy to let you go. It's no problem. I don't want to keep you. I know often I have the ability to keep people longer than they would prefer. But I will agree with you when it comes to my experience with addiction myself and with, plenty of people that I've worked with and lived with when it comes to addiction. yeah, it's, the addiction starts because it's a medicine that we take for something. You wouldn't be addictive if it wasn't. That's the difference between someone who drinks and someone who drinks because it gives them something that they don't have, or it numbs a pain, or it calms a nerve or something at the very sort of core of who they are. These any addiction really is just a habit formed by seeking our own cure, our own sort of panacea. And that's the problem, because of course we cannot cure anything for ourselves, and the continual seeking for some sort of medicine gets us into a habit that we can't get out of. And so that's kind of the basis of the real the real compassion that I feel, and I hope people start to tend to feel towards those with addiction, because it's more sad than anything, and you can see the powerlessness. There's a powerlessness in the addict that it can take a really long time for them to realize and understand and sort of accept. So yeah, that's a good angle there, Russian Handler. All right, I see you have muted your mic. So
Yeah, the walking, talking, doxing machines won't leave me alone.
walking, talking, doxing machine. That is so cute. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I'll let you go then, Russian Handler.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much. Unless you had anything else you wanted to say.
No, that was
Okay.
all.
All right. God bless you. I'll talk to you next time. Okay. Say hi
Okay.
to the KGB for me.
Okay.
Bye. Yeah, you know what? I want to give an update on someone who made a splash a couple years ago. A famous person who became a Christian very publicly and became a topic of debate in the Christian community for, at least a news cycle. And that's this fellow, Russell Brand. I've been keeping up here and there on Russell Brand. For those who don't remember, I don't know, maybe it was 2023 or 2024, that he very publicly came out and said that he, is a Christian now. And we all had a fun time debating about whether or not he's really Christian or what, or is he doing it just for his court case? He has pending court cases coming up in the UK, and that looms heavily in his life. And so there's lots of skepticism about his claim that he has found Christ. Now, here's the thing about fellows like Russell Brand. He is a professional communicator, a professional talker, and he's famous for being just like a ninja when it comes to rhetoric. But I've been keeping up with him, and I am more and more convinced over the times that I check in with him that the Lord's really doing something with that guy. I don't want to go into it too much, and I know there'll be some people who get really triggered by this, because people had very strong feelings. And we kind of left it here on the show with, we'll see. But he, along with his normal podcasting he does, now he's also become I could see this transition when he first became Christian. He really cleaned up his act. He really cleaned up his language. He cleaned up, some of the topics he talks about. Since then, he's maybe become a little bit more comfortable, or a little bit less, maybe judgmental. You could say it in a different way about, saying bad words or things like that. So, his style might be a little abrasive for people, and I'm certainly not prescribing that anybody go listen to him earnestly for theological advice, but I'm convinced that he's very earnest about this. about his walk with Christ, and he is basically constantly evangelizing on his show. You know, for a show that's not explicitly a Christian show, it is almost overwhelming how passionately and consistently he's calling his listeners to Christ, which is, in a way, pretty inspiring, but also a nice surprise, I suppose. Now, it is during this time in human history where we see every big podcaster becoming a Christian and people looking to whatever. I could name names. It could be Tucker, could be Candace, could be Sean Ryan, whatever. Everybody's a Christian now, and I hope that that's the case for sure. But nobody quite has communicated a true compassionate, consistent evangelism on their show that I've listened to, like Russell Brand. And he does another show now, which he kind of mixes in with his on the same podcast channels as his other podcast. So I don't know if it exists separately. Maybe we could search and find out. What is it called? I think it's called Crack On. I'll double check this here. I believe it's called Crack On, and it is basically a recovery podcast, where he talks about his long experience with addiction and recovery, and he has some other co-hosts who are also addicts in recovery. And I am personally not in recovery, not currently suffering from addiction, but alarm going off and a cat jumping on my lap. But having the experience that I've had, knowing the people, done the work that I've done with various addicts, Crack On is a really good place to start if anyone out there is wanting to start, I guess, looking into addiction recovery. Let me see here. Russell Brand, Crack On. Let's see. I'm just gonna see if it's in a YouTube channel or something. Yeah, okay. Crack On is what it's called. And it looks like it's just it's on his. He just has one YouTube channel. He's smarter than us. He doesn't make different YouTube channels for different shows. So just do a little search. I don't know. I'm not saying that you can recover from addiction simply by listening or watching Crack On by Russell Brand, but I think it's a really good place to start. Now he has a long history with AA. So there's a lot of AA stuff in there, but there's a lot of, again, just really, really passionate and consistent framing of addiction with his Christian faith. So there you go. I don't know. Go check it out. If you or someone is ready to interact, but with recovery material, but they're too scared to find help or to get help or to go somewhere to get help or whatever, maybe just check out Crack On, see if it does anything for you. He's very passionate. I believe he's very earnestly and passionately a Christian. However, it's not necessarily a show for the kids. So there's that. Thank you to John Smith on X. He says, love you guys. Glad y'all out there still pushing. That's true. That's right. We are still pushing. And that's pretty much that for today, folks. How far? What, 3 hours? Yep, we did it. That's it for today. Look at us go. Goodness gracious. Big shout out to all the callers. Thank you guys for calling in. Couldn't do the show without you. I want to give a shout out to a couple people who came in to produce the show today. There's one fella, Sir Darren, Night of the Hungry Panda, value for value, got value from the show, went to canarycry.support and supported the show. comes in for a pocket full of sevens. Thank you very much. And his note attached to this is keep on keeping on. And then he came in again. Thank you very much. Sir Darren came in for 3333. Appreciate that. And the message was for Basil's C.S. Lewis audiobooks. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sir Darren. Now I got to go get my C.S. Lewis audiobooks. For 3333, I might even be able to get some G.K. Chesterton. This is a hard name to say. Thank you very much, producer. I'm going to call you executive producer, Sir Darren, for today. And folks, it's because we're on the value for value model. You'll notice no advertisements, no platform partnerships, no product placements, no nothing, okay? We're entirely supported by people who get value from the show and recognize that in this hyper reality world that's formed around us, part of that hyper reality is a constant focus, anxiety, and almost eternal importance on our finances. And that is true. It is one of the ways that snaps us out of, or snaps us in, I guess, snaps us in through this hyper reality. And it's true. If we here, myself, Gons, we do these shows, we try to do them as well as we can and as often as we can. But because we don't have any institutional support whatsoever, we can only keep doing it because of y'all, people who get value from the show. And if you get value, put some value back in, because it's the only way that the show keeps going. So appreciate that. You can go to canarycry.support to learn more. And I'll be thanking anybody else who comes in on Monday. And let's see here. This cat needs to get out of the office, which means we need to feed the ducks. There you go. Feed the ducks here. You know, while we land the plane, I'll show you some more of these pictures of baby emus. There he is. They grow up so fast. You can only see over the edge of the brooder. We'll keep everybody posted. One of these days, I'll be able to stand still for 2 seconds. And I can get a non-blurry picture. And other than that, we're going to be back on Monday for another Canary Cry News Talk, folks. Just keep in mind, everything's going to be fine, okay? Everything's going to be fine. Everybody's freaking out. But if we let ourselves, if we let go of our own triggers, our own programmed responses, our own super smart, super insightful, very well analyzed first reactions to things, and instead wait for that still small voice. Pray for the mind of Christ to take over our reactions. Everything's going to be fine, okay, folks? Everything's going to be fine. And with that, I bid you adieu. Thank you for listening to this episode of Canary Cry Clubhouse. Make sure to tune in next time. But until then, you know what to do. Think outside the cage.